I wasn't supposed to be there. That's the first thing that flashes through my mind when his eyes meet mine across the counter. Steady, sharp, and far too knowing for someone who looks that young. The afternoon light pours through the wide glass windows of the downtown cooking studio, catching the edges of stainless steel and the smooth curve of his jaw. For a split second, I forget why I even signed up for this class. Some half-hearted attempt to reconnect with joy, according to my therapist. Knife skills, the class flyer had said. Confidence in the kitchen. Confidence I already had. Control, that was my default setting. I'd spent years building it, brick by brick, after a messy divorce and a career that demanded precision. But standing here, with sunlight streaking across the polished counters and the faint scent of basil in the air, I feel something slide loose. "Hi," he says, voice low and easy, the kind that feels like it belongs to someone who knows how to handle fire. "You're in my group?" He's tall, broad-shouldered, mid-20s maybe, wearing a fitted black chef's shirt, top button undone, sleeves rolled to his forearms. His forearms are tan, dusted with flour. He looks like he's spent a lifetime tasting life before I even remembered how. "Apparently," I manage, setting my bag down and slipping into a stool beside the cutting board. "You're the instructor?" He smirks. "Technically. Though I prefer culinary guide." I arch a brow. "Cute." He grins, slow, unbothered, and for some reason it disarms me. The sunlight hits his face just right, and I notice a faint scar near his temple, the kind that makes someone's beauty more human. "My name's Evan," he says, handing me a knife with a subtle brush of his fingers against mine. "And you're—" "Lena," I answer before I can overthink it. "Well, Lena," he says, my name sounding softer in his voice than it should. "Let's see how you handle a blade." The words hang between us a beat too long. I laugh, because that's what women like me do when we're caught off guard. We turn discomfort into humor. But there's something in the way he watches me. Not flirtatious exactly, but observant. He sees too much. The class buzzes around us, the hiss of pans, chatter, someone dropping a spoon. Yet it feels like the air between us thickens. Every time he walks past me, my pulse shifts. Every correction he offers feels deliberate, patient. "Relax your wrist," he murmurs at one point, his hand hovering near mine but not touching. "You're too tense." "I'm always tense," I say before I can stop myself. His eyes lift to mine. "You don't have to be." It's such a simple thing to say, but the way he says it, quiet, direct, it lands somewhere deeper than I expect. I focus on slicing tomatoes, refusing to look at him again, but my mind betrays me. I can feel his presence, steady, close, like gravity. Halfway through the session, he sets down his own knife and leans against the counter across from me, folding his arms. "So, Lena," he says, "what brings you here? You look like you've got everything figured out." I smile. The practiced kind, the one that hides. "Maybe I just wanted to learn how not to burn garlic." He chuckles. "Fair enough, though I'm guessing there's more to it." There is. There's a version of me that's tired of always knowing the next move. Tired of boardrooms and perfect replies, and pretending I don't feel hollow some days. But that version doesn't belong here, in this sunlit kitchen, with a stranger who looks at me like he can read the pages I've kept closed. Instead, I say, "I needed a hobby." He tilts his head. "You sure you're not just hiding in plain sight?" My knife pauses mid-slice. "Excuse me?" He shrugs lightly, but his gaze doesn't waver. "People come here sometimes to distract themselves. From something, someone, a life that doesn't fit anymore." For a moment, I forget to breathe. "Bold assumption," I reply, tone sharper than I intend. "Observation," he corrects, smiling faintly. "You're too aware of your surroundings to be casual. You measure everything, even your words. That stings more than it should." Because he's right. "How old are you, Evan?" I ask, deflecting. 25, he says, unashamed. "Old enough to notice things most people miss? Old enough to psychoanalyze your students?" He laughs, low, rich. "Only the interesting ones." It's ridiculous how that single line sends a pulse through me. I shouldn't feel this. He's just a kid, confident, charming, probably used to women tripping over his smile. But something about him feels different. There's an intensity there, not performative, not trying too hard, just present. When class ends, I linger longer than I mean to, washing my hands a little too slowly, avoiding the exit. He's wiping down the counter, sleeves pushed higher, sunlight cutting across his shoulders. "You're a natural," he says when I finally turn to go. I laugh softly. "I can follow directions. That's not the same as talent." He steps closer, not invading, but near enough that I can smell the faint mix of citrus and spice from the food on his skin. "Sometimes it is," he says. "You just have to trust yourself with the heat." The words hit harder than they should. My throat tightens. "See you next week?" he adds. I nod, pretending it's casual. "Sure." But something in his eyes, steady, familiar, catches me. I'm halfway out the door when he says it, quiet, almost an afterthought. "You probably don't remember me, do you?" I stop, slowly turn. "What?" He's standing there, sunlight spilling over his face, expression unreadable but heavy with something I can't name. "Never mind," he says, voice softer now. "It's been a while." My chest tightens. "We've met before?" He gives me a half smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, a long time ago. You used to know my mom. Back in Phoenix. The name lands like a drop of cold water down my spine. That city, that life, belonged to a version of me I buried years ago, after my marriage collapsed, and I left everything behind. I'm sorry. It's fine." He interrupts gently. "You wouldn't remember. I was just a kid." He holds my gaze a moment longer, then adds, "But I remembered you." The way he says it. Quiet. Sure, almost reverent. Makes the room feel smaller. Hotter. I can't move. The sunlight shifts, cutting between us like a spotlight. And then softly, he says the thing that makes my pulse trip completely off beat. "You were the first person who ever told me not to settle." He smiles once more. That same calm, knowing smile, and turns back to the counter, wiping it clean as if he hadn't just upended the air between us. I leave before I say something I can't take back. Outside, the city glows. Glass buildings reflecting endless daylight. Cars humming down the street, the air warm and alive. I walk fast, heart racing, unsure if I'm running from him or toward something I can't name. But as I glance at the cooking studio's reflection in a passing window, I know one thing for certain. Whatever this is, whatever memory he just cracked open, it's not harmless anymore. The following week, I tell myself not to go back. I even draft an email, a polite, professional withdrawal from the class. "Scheduling conflict," I write. "Regretfully can't continue." But I never hit send. Because by the time I finish the sentence, my cursor is already hovering over the delete key, and the image of his steady, sunlit stare has already slipped between my thoughts. By Thursday, I'm standing in front of the cooking studio again, pretending it's about commitment, growth, something adult and reasonable. But the moment I walk in and see him, black shirt, top button undone, sleeves rolled high, I know I'm lying to myself. "Hey," he says easily, like the air between us isn't charged enough to burn. "You came back." "Don't sound so surprised." "Not surprised," he says, a smile tugging at one corner of his mouth. "Relieved." The word hits deeper than it should. The room glows in soft gold from the wall of windows. Outside, the Los Angeles skyline hums. Palm trees, glass towers, the kind of perfect daylight that feels cinematic. Inside, the scent of garlic and butter curls through the warm air. Today's lesson, risotto. Patience food, Evan calls it. You can't rush it. You've got to feel when it's ready. He says it while standing beside me, our elbows brushing as he pours stock into the pan, stirring with slow, deliberate motion. "It's about timing," he adds, glancing at me. "Kind of like knowing when to say what you really mean." I look up at him, and there it is again. That undercurrent. The words behind his words. "Are we still talking about rice?" I ask, keeping my tone light. "Depends on how honest you want to be," he says quietly. I hold his gaze for a beat too long before turning back to the pan. You have a habit of pushing. Only when something's worth pushing for. The spoon trembles slightly in my hand. He notices, of course he does. We don't say much for a while, the silence filled with sizzling butter, soft jazz, and the sound of the city drifting in from outside. But it's not uncomfortable. It's alive. Every breath feels like it has weight. At one point, his hand brushes over mine as he adjusts my grip on the spoon. It's brief, barely a touch. But my pulse betrays me, kicking up like it's the first time someone's dared to reach past my armor in years. Later, as everyone plates their food, he leans close enough for his voice to drop low near my ear. You really don't remember Phoenix, do you? I swallow hard. I told you, it's been a long time. He nods slowly. You helped my mom once. She was your neighbor. You used to check in on her when she was going through stuff. My breath catches. Fragments stir, flashes of desert sunlight, a tired woman with kind eyes, a teenage boy sitting on the porch steps. I remember the feeling more than the faces. I remember saying something like, "Don't settle for less than what you know you're capable of." You were that kid, I whisper. His expression softens. Yeah, the realization hits like a ripple of heat. I had no idea he'd grown into this confident, composed man with the same clear eyes that once carried too much sadness for someone so young. I look at him differently now, not as some charming 20-something, but as someone who's lived through something that shaped him. And yet, that makes it worse. Because now the pull between us feels like something threaded through time, something that started long before this kitchen. When class ends, most people linger around, packing up leftovers and laughing. I'm about to leave when Evan says, "Wait." He holds up his phone. "You didn't get your feedback sheet." Feedback? Yeah. His tone is light, but his eyes say something else. We're supposed to do one-on-one follow-ups. 10 minutes. That's the rule. It's not. I know it's not. But I follow him anyway. He leads me to a smaller prep room at the back of the studio, sunlight streaming in through tall frosted windows. The noise of the class fades into the distance. He sets his phone aside, leans against the counter, arms folded. You always look like you're holding back, he says. I cross my arms too. Maybe I'm just careful. He shakes his head slightly. No, careful is different. Careful is smart. Holding back is fear. I should laugh, deflect, something, but I can't. Not when he's looking at me like that. Steady, unflinching, like he can see right through the layers I've spent years perfecting. What are you afraid of? He asks quietly. I force a smile. You're assuming I am. He pushes off the counter, steps closer. The light catches on the silver band of his watch, as his hand rests near the edge of the counter beside mine. You look at me, he says softly, like you want to trust me. Then you remember I'm younger and you shut down. My pulse quickens. You're not wrong. Then tell me I'm out of line, he murmurs. I should, I say. But you won't. The air between us thickens again, that magnetic, wordless pull that keeps finding us no matter how much I try to resist it. I take a step back. This is complicated, he nods. Most things worth feeling are. His voice is calm. But there's something else there. Something deeper. You don't know me, I say. I knew you when I was 13, he replies. And I think I've been trying to find that version of honesty ever since. That stops me cold. Back then, you told my mom she didn't need anyone's permission to start over. You told her she deserved better than a life that kept her small. I never forgot that. He takes another small step closer, the sunlight hitting his jawline. His shirt open just enough to hint at the strength underneath. And now, he says softly, I'm looking at you, the woman who taught me that. And you're the one hiding. Something inside me cracks open. I don't know how long we stand there. The hum of the city outside, the warmth of the day, the quiet rhythm of our breathing, it all blurs. Then he says, almost in a whisper, You don't scare me. Lena. The words land like a challenge. I turn, trying to collect myself. But he catches my wrist gently, Not possessive, just grounding. "Hey," he says, his tone softer now. "You can let go. Just for a second." For the first time in years, I do. Not completely. Not in the way that ends careers or rewrites reputations, but enough to exhale without armor. I meet his gaze again. "You have no idea what you're asking." "Maybe not," he admits. "But I know what it feels like to be seen, and I think you forgot what that feels like. That's when I feel it. The surrender I've been fighting. Not the reckless kind, but the quiet one that comes from finally being understood." He doesn't touch me again. Not really. But the silence between us feels electric, heavy with everything neither of us dares to say aloud. "Evan," I whisper, almost to myself. "This can't happen." He nods, but his eyes don't waver. "Then tell me you don't feel it." "I can't." He exhales, half a laugh, half a confession. "Didn't think so." A beat passes. Then he steps back, giving me space I didn't ask for but suddenly need. "Next week," he says softly. "Last class. You'll come?" I nod once. "Yeah." He gives a small smile. "Then I'll wait." When I walk out into the afternoon, the sun is blinding, the city alive with color and motion. I should feel in control again, but I don't. My hands still feel the ghost of his warmth, my mind replaying every word, every look, every inch of space we didn't cross. I drive home in silence, my reflection flickering in the glass as sunlight floods the freeway. By the time I reach my apartment, I've already decided I won't go back. By the time night falls, that golden kind that turns everything soft, I know I will, because what's between us isn't confusion anymore, it's recognition. It's the echo of a truth I've spent years denying, that maybe the thing I've been afraid of isn't losing control. It's feeling alive again. By the time I reach the studio for the final class, the California light is almost blinding. The whole city seems drenched in gold. The sidewalks, the palm trees, even the glass doors that reflect back a version of me I hardly recognize. Hair a little softer, eyes a little braver, still scared but less afraid to admit it. Inside, the air hums with weekend energy. People are laughing, clinking pans, greeting each other like old friends. I pause by the counter, scanning the room before I spot him. Evan. He's setting out ingredients, sleeves rolled up again, sunlight catching on his forearm as he works. When he looks up, our eyes meet. That small, knowing smile, the one that always makes my pulse skip. "Morning," he says, voice easy, but his gaze lingers. "You made it. I said I would." He nods slowly, like he's memorizing the moment. "Good." The word feels heavier than it should. Today's dish, lemon gnocchi with sage butter. Bright, fragrant, simple on paper, impossible in practice. He moves through the instructions with effortless focus, explaining textures, timing, touch. The room glows, his voice threading through the hum of conversation. I follow along, pretending I'm here for the recipe, not the person teaching it. But it's no use. Every motion feels charged. Every glance between us feels like an echo of something neither of us said aloud. At one point, I catch him watching me from across the room, not in a way that invites, but in a way that remembers. When the class breaks for lunch, I slip out to the terrace, a small, sunlit balcony that overlooks the city. The breeze is warm, carrying the faint scent of citrus from the trees below. I'm sipping water, trying to steady my breath, when he steps outside. "You always disappear right before it gets good," he says lightly. I smirk. Maybe I like mystery. He leans against the railing beside me, crossing his arms. Or maybe you like distance. He's right again, damn him. "Evan," I start, but my voice trails off. He turns toward me, sunlight painting gold across his skin. "You can relax, Lena. I'm not going to make a move on you." A flicker of something defensive rises in me. "You think I'm afraid of that?" He shakes his head. "No. I think you're afraid of what it would mean if you weren't." The silence between us stretches, not cold, but alive, trembling with all the things we haven't dared to say. "Do you really think this could ever be simple?" I ask finally. He exhales, eyes soft, No, but since when does everything have to be simple to be real? I look away toward the skyline, the silver gleam of buildings, the soft hum of the city below. People talk, Evan, about women my age who what? He interrupts gently. Feel something? Want something? That's not scandal, that's humanity. His words land like sunlight on a bruise. I open my mouth, but he keeps going, voice steady, low, deliberate. You were the first person who ever made me believe in more than survival. When you told my mom not to settle, you were talking to her, but I heard you too, and I've been waiting to say this for a long time. He steps closer. Not enough to touch, but close enough that I can feel the heat radiating between us. You told her to stop living small, he says. Now I'm asking you to take your own advice. I shake my head. Evan, you don't owe me anything, he says quickly. You don't even have to feel the same. I just need you to know that you changed my life, and you still are. Something in my chest breaks open. Years of composure, of professionalism, of quiet. All the ways I've played the part of the woman who doesn't need, doesn't want, doesn't ache. I finally look at him. Really look. This beautiful, self-assured man who once needed saving and now offers it back without realizing. Why me? I ask softly. He smiles, slow, unguarded. Because you were never afraid to be real, even when you thought you were pretending. My throat tightens, and what if I can't give you what you want? He shrugs gently. Then we still had this, and it was honest. That word, honest, hits me harder than any declaration could. I don't know what takes over then. Maybe it's the warmth, maybe the sunlight, maybe the simple truth that I'm done hiding. But I reach out, fingers brushing against his wrist, light as a breath. The moment stretches, a single touch that feels like forgiveness. I hate that you're right, I whisper. He laughs quietly. You just like control too much. I used to, I say, meeting his eyes. Maybe it's time I let it go. He doesn't move closer, doesn't push. He just stands there, waiting, respectful, steady. And somehow that restraint is the most intimate thing of all. We don't kiss. We don't need to. The connection is already complete. When we go back inside, everything feels lighter. He teases me when I drop flour on the counter. I roll my eyes when he steals my spatula. But underneath the laughter, something new hums. A quiet peace I haven't felt in years. By the end of class, everyone's taking selfies, swapping numbers, planning dinner meetups. Evan's talking to another instructor, but his eyes flick toward me every few seconds, as if checking that I haven't vanished again. When I finally turn to leave, he catches up. You forgot this, he says, holding out a small folded note. I take it, trying not to smile. Homework? Sort of, he grins. Just don't read it until you get home. He gives a small nod, then walks back toward the kitchen, the light catching his black shirt, that undone collar, that effortless confidence. I leave before I change my mind. The drive home feels different. The city glows in afternoon gold, the air warm and alive. Every traffic light feels like a heartbeat. When I reach my apartment, I unfold the note. His handwriting is neat, deliberate. Lena, sometimes we meet people who remind us who we used to be. Sometimes they remind us who we still are. Thank you for both. I sit there for a long time, sunlight spilling across my desk, the city humming outside my window. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm performing. I feel present, real. And then, because life has a sense of humor, my phone buzzes. Evan, we're doing a community dinner next month. Outdoor setup. Need a partner for the plating station. Any chance you're free? I stare at the message for a moment before typing back. Me, depends. What's the dress code? Evan. Sunlight and second chances. I laugh. Loud, genuine. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep. And just like that, the fear I've been clinging to dissolves. Because this, whatever it is, whatever it becomes, isn't about age or control or risk. It's about truth. The kind that sneaks up on you while you're stirring a pot of risotto and suddenly reminds you that you're still capable of warmth. I close my laptop, open the window wider, and let the sunlight flood in. A week later, the community dinner is buzzing with life. Long tables set up along the patio, glasses clinking, people laughing, a breeze moving through the lemon trees. I'm helping set out plates when I feel a familiar presence behind me. Hey, partner, Evan says, handing me a dish. Hey, chef, I reply, smiling before I can stop myself. He grins. Glad you made it. Wouldn't miss it. The light is soft and golden, the air filled with warmth and the faint scent of sage. For a moment, the world feels simple. We move together easily, plating, passing, laughing. No tension, no overthinking. Just rhythm and sunlight and the quiet certainty that some connections don't end. They just change form. At one point, he leans close, voice low enough that only I can hear. You know, I was right about one thing. What's that? You really can trust yourself with the heat. I glance up, the corner of my mouth curving. Guess I had a good teacher. His smile softens. Guess you did. The guests start clapping as the last dishes go out. And for a moment, I just stand there, surrounded by laughter, color, light. The woman I used to be would have stayed on the sidelines, content to observe. The woman I am now steps forward into the glow. Evan catches my eye from across the table, and for a fleeting golden second, I feel the world narrow to that look. Honest, steady, full of promise. It isn't fantasy. It isn't perfect, but it's real, and that's enough. The last thing he says before the night ends stays with me long after the plates are cleared, the guests gone, the city quiet again. He looks at me, sunlight fading behind him, and says softly, "Don't settle, Lena. Not even for comfort." I smile, the kind that feels like beginning. Not anymore. If this story made your heart race and your thoughts linger, don't stop here. Tap subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment below, telling me which moment between them hit you hardest. Your reactions keep these sunlit love stories alive, and the next one might just outshine this one.